The UN's International Organization for Migration estimates there could be 1.5 billion environmental migrants by 2050. The world we are creating through global heating is inevitable, and award-winning author and science journalist Gaia Vince is here to tell us, with careful planning and cooperation, how we can manage it. In her new book, Nomad Century, How Climate Migration Will Reshape Our World. Gaia, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Huge pleasure, Mona.
Your book lays out that rather disturbing scenario that wide swaths of planet Earth will become completely uninhabitable, but it also focuses on solutions. How can we all feel less helpless right now?
Yeah, well, we need to look differently at the problem. Migration is inevitable now. I wrote Nomad Century because nobody is talking about the huge upheaval that is coming as climate change makes large parts of the world unlivable. People will not be able to adapt in certain places. They will have to move. But migration is not the problem. Migration is the solution. If we manage this, if we plan it, we can actually build thriving cities that save people from some of the worst devastation in some of the poorest parts of the world, while also solving demographic issues that we have in the wealthier northern parts of the world. So it's actually could be a win-win if we do it properly and if we actually plan. But nobody is talking about this issue. It's very frustrating.
Apart from being a climate journalist, as a resident of London, you too experienced the effects of climate change firsthand during the summer's heat waves. Infrastructure began to collapse in one of the wealthiest areas of the world, and now conversations are being had surrounding climate adaptation. Is this a situation where humans don't adjust until the effects of climate change are literally in their backyards?
I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? We've been warned for decades by scientists that climate change is happening. It's going to increasingly affect our lives. But it's only when these extreme weather events, and we've all had this this terrible summer of huge heat waves. My kids couldn't go to school. It was too hot for them. Our infrastructure is not set up for that. In the US, you've also had extreme weather. Kentucky was completely inundated with water. You've had the whole of the west coast of the US was on fire, more or less, with the terrible forest fires. You've also had heat waves, drought that's killed thousands of cattle. This is going to become, unfortunately, a matter of life and death, even in the richest nations.
Gaia, considering the current stigma surrounding asylum seekers, migration on this scale is sort of hard to fathom, yet you paint a very humane and optimistic image of what this mass migration could look like if properly facilitated. With that, how do we begin to unpack this political hostility and come to terms with climate displacement?
Well, migration is inevitable. And in Nomad Century, what I do is I try to make people realize that what we've done is we've allowed the narrative around migrants, around refugees, asylum seekers to become truly toxic. And migration, it's not a security issue. It's actually an economic issue. It turns out that most countries around the world their economies could not survive without migrants. Who are going to do the everyday jobs that cities rely on? We all rely on migrants. We're not having enough babies in most nations in the Northern Hemisphere. And so as our populations age, we're going to face huge labor shortages. It's a demographic crisis. The only way to solve it is through immigration. Let's make it work. Let's actually plan it.
And in your book, you argue that it doesn't have to be as scary as it sounds. It could be a win-win for the global north, who, as you mentioned, has a demographic crisis. But it is sort of crazy to think about what you propose, that cities may one day exist in Antarctica. We have a segment on our show called It's Not Too Late, focusing on climate solutions. Do you believe it is not too late to prepare for this?
It's absolutely not too late. You know, every degree of temperature rise, every 1/10 of a degree of temperature rise makes a difference, and we have to fight for that. You know, this is a serious economic and humanitarian issue. We can solve it. We need to mitigate. We need to reduce our emissions. We need to get to net zero, and then we need to cut below that. We need to withdraw the carbon that we've already emitted from our atmosphere. We need to change the way human systems work to make them sustainable with natural systems, because natural systems are much harder to change.
Gaia, you proposed some promising solutions. We appreciate you joining us. Nomad Century, How Climate Migration Will Reshape Our World, is now available wherever books are sold.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.